Good morning, children, and welcome to St Mark's Sunday School. My name is Anne, and I'm going to talk today about Jesus inviting us when we were heavy laden and we're burdened with things. Now, when I was young, I used to live a long way away from the shops and the village and from the nearest bus stop. So I was often loaded up with all sorts of things and trying to carry them home. Now, I want you to imagine that you have got a lot of things that you are carrying. You've got a heavy burden, and you may be on your way home from shops or school, and you are struggling. You're also probably getting a bit tired. When you see someone that you know, maybe a friend or a relative, and they are waiting. They're waiting for you to invite them to help you in your heavy load. But you want to carry on yourself. You might not want help. But when you invite them to help you, the load is much easier. I remember with me, with heavy shopping, one person would hold one handle and I would hold the other. And a load shared is a load halved. And it's much easier when you share your load. Love can also lighten a heavy load or burden. Without love, the burden can be intolerable. My mother-in-law came to live with us. This was some time ago. And she became ill. Now, I loved my mother-in-law. Her name was Gladys. And she did become ill, and she did need a lot of care. But because I loved her, both of us, it didn't seem quite so much of a burden. But without love, I think it would have been intolerable. It would have been really difficult. And so, in the end, it was love that kept us going. Now, Jesus loves us very much. And when we've got a burden, when we've got a heavy load that's getting harder to bear and we struggle, He will invite us to share the load with Him. And that's what we do in prayer and just talking to Him. And our load will be much lighter if we bring it to Him to lighten our load. To explain this a little bit more, I'm going to tell you about a man who had a dream that he was walking with the Lord along the sand. And his life just flashing through his eyes. And as they walked, there was 2 footprints in the sand. But when the life got a bit rocky, when the flash was a part of his life that he was saddened about, or there was a disaster, and he could see it happening through the flashes, he looked back and he saw only 1 set of footprints. And this worried him. He thought, why is there only 1 set of footprints when this part of my life was so tough and so difficult? So he asked the Lord. He asked the Lord why, when his life had got really tough, there was only 1 pair of footprints in the sand. And Jesus answered him to say, my son, when the journey of your life got tough and you were upset and needed help, there was only 1 set of footprints, because I carried you. I carried you through the bad times. Therefore, there was only 1 set of footprints. So when we burden, let out our burden to Jesus. He invites us to come in. I know when I was burdened, I let my burden out to him. And I felt comforted. I let it out to Jesus. And it wasn't so heavy anymore. It was lighter. And just as that story, and there's only 1 set of footprints, and Jesus was carrying him. Well, I hope that explained a lot, and you enjoyed your Sunday school today. Now I'm going to ask Malachi to read the psalm, and the psalm today is 145, and he is reading from verse 8 to verses 15. And then Maureen will go through the fact file with you. So till next week, goodbye.
Psalm 145, verses 8 to 15. The Lord is kind and shows mercy. He does not become angry quickly, but is full of love. The Lord is good to everyone. He is merciful to all he has made. Lord, everything you have made will praise you. Those who belong to you will bless you. They will tell about the glory of your kingdom. They will speak about your power. Then everyone will know what powerful things you do. They will know about the glory and majesties of your kingdom. Your kingdom will continue forever, and you will be king from now on. The Lord will keep his promises with love. He takes care of all he has made. The Lord helps those who have been defeated. He takes care of those who are in trouble. All living things look to your food for food, and you give it to them at the right time.
Good morning. Today I'm going to look at the fact file or the worksheet for Proper 9. On the worksheet on the left hand side there are a number of pictures. So the first one says some people are like Atlas. They struggle alone under a heavy load. I don't know whether you've heard of Atlas before, but he's quite a popular figure. So looking back in time, the ancient Greeks wrote stories about their gods. They believed in various gods. The god of the sea, the god of the sky, the god of thunder, God for everything really. Lots and lots of gods. If you've ever read the stories about their mythology, I read the books by Homer many years ago, and the Iliad is the one that really springs to mind. Tells about the voyages of Odysseus. You may have been watching the programme by Bethany Hughes. Her voyages around the Greek islands, following the voyages of Odysseus. And Atlas is from the Greek mythology. Now Atlas was a Titan in the stories, and the Titans were the former gods. Before the Olympians became gods. And the Olympians lived on Mount Olympus. And that's where we get the word the Olympics comes from. So the ruler of the gods was Zeus. Now Atlas, being one of the Titans, with his brother, supported the Titans in their war against the Olympians. And then, as a result, Zeus, the ruler of the gods, punished Atlas by condemning him to carry on his shoulders the weight of the skies. In this picture, it shows Atlas with the world on his shoulders. I think the true story is that it was the skies, but clearly it's easier to depict Atlas with the world on his shoulders rather than the skies. If you want to, you can read some of the stories. They're quite interesting, and also there have been many films. I think a few years ago I watched The Clash of the Titans, based on the mythology. So that's who Atlas was. And clearly he would have struggled with the enormous weight that he was trying to carry. Just like us, we have weights that we carry. Emotional weights, worries, concerns, sometimes despair, as we try to work through our various problems. But we don't need to, because Jesus is there. Jesus will help us to find a way to cope. Jesus invites us to share our troubles with him. And as the saying goes, a load shared is a load halved, or a problem shared is a problem halved. Jesus will help us to get through our difficult times. And then we've been asked to read Galatians Chapter 6 verse 2. And that's in the New Testament, after the book of Acts and Romans. It says, love lightens a load. Jesus invites us to come to him. In his presence we find rest and refreshment. And then we've been asked to look up Matthew chapter 11 verse 28. And the worksheet mentions the footprint story. Now, I'm not going to go through the footprint story because Anne has just read that. You may have seen this story before. You very often see it on birthday cards and postcards, and in gift shops you may have seen it on decorative plates or even key rings. It's quite a popular story, and it's very uplifting, giving people the strength to carry on. So, on the right-hand side, we have the words Jesus invitations, and we're asked to read Matthew chapter 11 verses 16 to 19. Jesus tells of how perverse people are. So I'm not sure whether you know what the word perverse means. It means doing the absolute opposite of what advice tells you to do. So if someone gives you directions, you might turn around and go in the opposite direction. If someone gives you advice, then you might decide to do something completely different rather than take the advice. So that's what it means by being perverse. It says they, people, are invited to join in, but they excuse themselves. They decide they're not going to join in. And then it says, think about it. They excuse themselves, exclude themselves. So if they exclude themselves from the love of God and from following Jesus, then they miss out. They miss out on all the wonderful things that Jesus has to offer. And how often do we do that? How often do we turn our backs on Jesus? Do we pretend that he doesn't exist? Then we're asked to read Matthew chapter 11 verses 25 to 27. Jesus is praying to the Father. It says even infants can see and be aware of what Jesus offers. Do we take it seriously? We come to know the love the Father has given through the revealing of Jesus. The love that he showed by sending his Son down to earth to die for us. That amazing love, that he did that for us. The ultimate sacrifice, suffering pain and humiliation. And then we're asked to read Matthew chapter 11 verses 28 to 30. Jesus invites each one of us saying, come. He invites the weary, those that are very tired, those with heavy burdens, carrying lots of problems on their shoulders, trying to do too many things, with lots of worries and stress. And Jesus offers rest. In him we find renewal, restoration, and refreshment. He doesn't give us a cup of tea, but what he does offer us is renewal of the spirit, a lightening of the load, so that we don't have to stress ourselves out anymore. We don't have to stay awake worrying night after night. We can hand it all over to Jesus, and he will provide a pathway through. Jesus the carpenter offers tailor-made yokes. Now, I wonder whether you've ever seen a yoke. If you go to some of the museums, like maybe Amberley in Sussex, you will see some of the yokes there. Now, in the UK, we are mechanised. We have mechanised farming. It's motorised. We have machines. But long, long ago in the country, we used to use animals to plough the fields. You may have seen some films years ago of the animals in the fields pulling a plough. And in some countries today, they still use animals to pull ploughs. You may have seen them in India or in Africa. I'm sure there are other countries around the world as well that use these animals. Now, if you have an animal, as we all know, sometimes they like to do their own thing. So if the animals are pulling the plough, then they need to do it in unison. They need to do it together. So in order for them to do it together and to attach the animals to the plough, we need a yoke. So the yoke is made out of wood and would go over the head of each of the animals, be it oxen or cows, and it would pull the plough together. So that's why they would wear the yoke. But that helps them because with their united strength, they can pull the plough much easier and make it lighter for themselves. So that's what it means by yoke. And Jesus the carpenter, well, of course, if we think back, his earthly father was Joseph, and Joseph was a carpenter. So in his workshop, I'm sure Jesus growing up would have watched Joseph working. He may even have picked up some skills from Joseph as he worked away. So that refers to Jesus the carpenter, who offers tailor-made yokes. So what does that mean, tailor-made? That's just for us, each one of us. He'll provide the assistance that we need to carry on, to complete the mission that we might have before us. And the yokes will be there to help us. The yokes being the help that Jesus gives us, rather than a physical yoke. And these yokes, they will not chafe or hurt, so they will not rub and give us pain or make us hurt. They will make life easier for us, help us through life. Jesus is there to help us. And then it says, come and find rest in him and let your burden be light. Hand it all over to Jesus and Jesus will help you find a way. He will provide the path through all of the difficulties, all the troubles that lie ahead, all that you are in at the moment. And then finally we have the prayer at the bottom of the sheet. Lord Jesus, let us hear your call each day and come to you for healing, for renewal, for your love. Amen. So I hope that has been helpful to you, and I hope that you will enjoy looking through the scriptures on the right hand side listed in Matthew. And I'll provide my points on those texts, and that will be included next week. So I hope you enjoyed all of that, and I hope you enjoyed my explanation of the Greek mythology, and you may very well see some of the films at some point. I know there are quite a few of them around. A few years ago I watched Clash of the Titans. Might be a little bit violent, I can't quite remember. But anyway, there are lots of things around to remind us of the ancient Greeks and their mythology, and maybe when you're in a museum you may see some of their artifacts and so on. So I hope you enjoyed it all, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Goodbye.